Okay. Good morning, bonjour. I'm Gloria Fang, convener of the Canadian Coalition for a Foreign Influence Transparency Registry. We represent 33 multicultural community organizations across Canada. Foreign interference and intimidation pose a grave threat to our communities, national security, and Canada's election integrity. But governments have ignored Canadians' concerns despite our decades of repeated warnings. The registry seeks to protect transparency, which is key to a healthy democracy. We need the registry as an important first step to address threats and to protect our democratic process. The government has been talking about creating it since 2021. There's been extensive consultation. The only thing lacking is the political will to get it done. Members of Parliament from the governing and opposition parties are here today to support our demand that the legislation is, if the legislation is not up and running before the next election is called, the interference we've experienced in 2019 and 2021 will repeat itself in the coming election. And today, regardless of our ethnic background and which party we support, Canadians want action now. So we are very happy to have members of Parliament from various parties to speak at our press conference today. So first of all, I would like to call on Mr. McKay and also Mr. Alasi from the Liberal Party. So each party will have 1 minute to speak. Please.
Good morning, friends. Allow me first and foremost to thank Gloria and Marcus for convening this. This is a very important issue. I think we've all had the opportunity to speak to vulnerable communities that are essentially at the front lines of foreign interference. That's an issue we should all take incredibly seriously. It is a clear and present danger, and I think that behooves all of us here, and I'm happy to see members from various parties, but it behooves us all to make sure that we are engaged on this issue and that we do take the necessary steps before the next election. As Marcus has rightly said, there has to be a cost associated for any country that interferes with our democratic processes or with our elections. So great pleasure to be here and happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm here, of course, with John McKay and Mr. Samir Zuberi. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. McKay, you're not going to speak, right? Okay. So next. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. So next, we would like to call on Mr. Tom Kimish of the Conservative Party to speak. Please.
Thank you very much. So Gloria, isn't she awesome? Like a little ball of energy. Obviously, Conservatives, we support a Foreign Agent Registry Act. It was a Conservative member of Parliament, a former Conservative member of Parliament that supported it. It's time. It just makes common sense. If you take money from a foreign source for a foreign government, you should have to register in Canada. The United States has had a foreign registry since the 1930s. Australia has a foreign registry as well. You can go onto it. I've been onto it. I've looked at the way their system works. We support it. It's time to do it. They should stop talking about it. They'll have the support of many, many, many Conservative members of Parliament to get this done, legislated before the next election so we can protect Canadians from different diaspora communities in Canada. Thanks, Gloria, for doing this.
Thank you. And next, we'd like to invite Mr. René Villemure and also Mr. Alexis Brunel-Duzat from the Bloc Québécois to come forward. And René will be the one to speak. please.
Merci beaucoup, Gloria. C'est très gentil. Merci à tous d'être ici ce matin. Au Bloc québécois, on a un souci sincère pour les risques courus par les diasporas à travers le pays, pour la population générale courue à travers le pays, et nous avons toujours soutenu la mise sur pied d'un registre des agents étrangers. À cet effet, nous avons préparé un projet de loi qui sera déposé avant la fin de la session, un projet de loi contraignant afin de limiter les efforts possibles des agents étrangers. Donc, un projet qui va devoir exiger de plusieurs parties d'être inscrits avec il y aura également des pénalités. On va être certain que tout va bien fonctionner parce qu'on a à cœur votre sort, le sort des communautés, le sort de la population en général. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Okay, next we would like to invite Ms. Jenny Kwan of NDP to speak.
Well, thank you very much, Gloria, and thank you to you and Marcus and the entire coalition for being here today. And thank you also for your ongoing work in the fight for basic human rights for all. I stand here today in support of the coalition's call for the government to immediately table legislation on the Foreign Interference Agent Registry. It is time. In fact, it is long overdue. What we do know is that the government said they will do it, and they said, in fact, last year that they would introduce this legislation. The consultation has now been completed. There is simply no excuse for this not to be put forward. As it was mentioned, we need to see this in place passed before the next election. It is absolutely critical. As someone who is an evergreen target of foreign interference, and more, we're learning more people are being targeted, and parliamentarians that our privilege is being violated in this way. Members of that diaspora community are being affected and are fearful. We need to use every measure that is available to us to fight foreign interference. Finally, I would say this. Independent of the work of the Commission, the Foreign Interference Commission, this needs to be done now. The government cannot use that as an excuse to delay further action. They cannot say, with the work of the Commission, that we will not proceed until the recommendations come forward. There is no excuse. This needs to be done now.
Thank you. And next, we would like to invite Ms. Elizabeth May of the Green Party to speak.
Thank you, and apologies to my colleagues that I've raced in a bit late. It's an honor to join Jenny Kwan and the other human rights defenders who are here today in calling for a foreign agents registry. I particularly want to underline concerns that we want to make sure this registry doesn't in any way stigmatize or otherwise compromise members of the diaspora community in Canada of the particular nationality that's being targeted as a source of foreign interference. We need to make sure that the ongoing problem of harassment and intimidation of Canadian human rights group is dealt with effectively, and we know that the Foreign Agents Registry by itself will be insufficient to deliver that result. We are pleased to see this degree of support and from such a broad range of human rights defenders. We need a Foreign Agents Registry. We need to ensure that the civil liberties of human rights defenders are protected in Canada as well as globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We would like to thank once again the support from from MPs of all federal parties to our demand for the registry to be enacted now. And next, we would like to invite Marcus Koga, the President of the European Council, to speak on behalf of the coalition.
Thanks, Gloria. It's quite clear that the sovereignty of our democracy is not a partisan issue. And I want to thank all of the MPs that are here today supporting this. And also, this registry will protect the vulnerable Canadians who we have standing behind us, this diaspora community and human rights activists who are often targets of foreign influence and information operations. Transparency is a key component of any healthy democracy. Our laws require transparency from groups and individuals who advocate on behalf of private interests in Ottawa through a lobbyist registry. So too should we demand transparency from those who advance the interests of foreign regimes, specifically those like Russia, China, Iran, and others who are broadly considered authoritarian. The morally corrupt actors who interfere in our democratic processes and manipulate our public policy in service of foreign authoritarian regimes can do so today with relative impunity in the safety of the shadows. This includes foreign authoritarian proxies and influencers. Among them are former Canadian officials, diplomats, academics, and far left and far right activists who exploit and hide behind their titles to advance authoritarian interests and to intimidate and discredit the critics of those regimes. The Foreign Influence Transparency Registry will, however, impose a cost on those actors who exploit our freedoms and threaten the sovereignty of our democracy and the rights of vulnerable Canadian minority groups and the activists who are critical of them. Those individuals and groups that operate legitimately and transparently should have no fear of the transparency that a registry would demand. The Central and Eastern European communities in Canada urge the Government of Canada to quickly enact this legislation to defend vulnerable communities and to protect the freedom and sovereignty of our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Last but not least, I would like to invite Razia to speak briefly about the challenges her community has been confronted with.
Good morning, bonjour. Je me représente pour Uyghur. J'ai juste une minute, alors je vais être brève. Today, I would like to talk about some true life stories of myself. Because of Chinese interference, sadly, even my some Uyghur neighbors are afraid to speak to me. Why? Because I'm activist. Another very sad example, journalists agreed to meet with me only to cancel because a suspicious individual resembling Chinese military personnel appeared near her home, prompting fear for her son's safety. Je me réveille souvent le matin avec des messages et des appels téléphoniques en chinois. Ceci me rappelle que je suis toujours sous la surveillance constante de Pékin. These types of stories are countless. But there are actions the Canadian government can take to protect my freedom and that of others. The first step is by passing a foreign influence registry. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you. So next, we welcome questions from our media friends here, and but I would like to, ask all our media friends' question to be focused on today's main theme, that is the Foreign Influence Transparency Act. If there's a question on other issues, we can deal with it after the press conference. Yes, please.
May I ask a question of Jenny? So, Ms. Kwan, we're hearing there are voices in the Chinese-Canadian community and even in Parliament, Senator Wu, for example, who say that this foreign registry is racist, it's going to target Chinese-Canadians unfairly. This is all partisan meeting agreement on a foreign agent registry, but I'd like to get your response to, that's being spread within the community.
Well, I would like to say this to Senator Wu and those who are speaking against the Foreign Interference Agent Registry. I have to say that this registry applies to protect everyone, every single Canadian. Doesn't matter what community you come from, it gives protection to all Canadians. Contrary to the idea that somehow it targets only one community, for example, the Chinese-Canadian community, they are dead wrong. It is the opposite. It is precisely that we want Chinese-Canadian communities to be protected. We want people from the Uyghur community to be protected. We want people from the Ukrainian community to be protected. We want every single Canadian to be protected. Without this registry, that means those vulnerable communities could be targeted, and they are being targeted. Let's be clear about that. They are being targeted. And this is one measure, one tool that needs to be put in place to provide that protection for all Canadians. So I would ask for those who are fighting against this registry to stop spreading misinformation. I would also refer people to look into the consultation that the government did embark on last year. That consultation is now complete. And the vast majority of the people who participated in that open consultation process are in support of the registry. It needs to be done now, and it needs to be done before the next election.
Can I ask Ali a
Thank
question?
you. Yeah.
So when we hear about the foreign registry, because so much we know, so much it has involved China as the principal actor, but you know, you've raised concerns about Iran. We know there's concerns about Russia. How would this registry work in a way that would satisfy members in, say, the Iranian-Canadian community to identify people that may be working for the regime?
For sure. I think it's a complicated process. A lot needs to happen. And that's why I'm very pleased that the government actually did undertake those consultations. But at this particular point, given that we are facing the next election, I think what all of our communities and numerous members are concerned about is making sure that we implement some concrete steps, and a very big part of that is the registry. However, there were other pieces to this puzzle as well, whether it be the findings of the Foreign Interference Commission, or what our national security agencies are doing, or what the government actually ultimately.
How do you see this registry working as a way to alert Canadians or our police forces, frankly, to be able to lay charges?
Well, as you know full well, there are other countries that do have foreign registries. I think it is incumbent upon all of us to look at those experiences, make sure that we do this in a responsible fashion. I would remind you, for example, that the United States, if I'm not mistaken, has had this registry in place since 1939. So given those persistent and growing threats that various communities are facing, I think it's high time that we leverage knowledge from various communities. We look at models that have been implemented in other jurisdictions and make sure that before the next election, that registry is in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Dean, please.
A question for MP Kwan first, and then I have one for Renee. My question for you on the, obviously you became a target of interference operations by the CCP with respect to strengthening the laws inside of Canada. FARA is the first step. How do we go about protecting whistleblowers and journalists as well at the same time who have been part of this journey with many of the people in this audience? And how do you think the FARA will affect the government and the laws of the land to actually support this kind of advocacy for freedom and democracy?
Well, thank you very much for that excellent question. In fact, we know that journalists and other actors are being targeted as well, whistleblower, if you will. Much of the information that we have learned about what's happening in terms of targeting from foreign interference actors actually came from leaks. Actually came from whistleblowers, if you will. And so we need to undertake measures to protect them because they're acting in the best interest of Canada. And so that's one thing that I hope perhaps the Commission will also look into. We're yet waiting for the Commission to come forward with all of their recommendations. Phase 2 is still coming forward. Phase 2 is going to be very much focused, I believe, on the diaspora community. And the diaspora community includes, in my view, journalists as well, and the exposure that they are faced with. So I'm calling on the government to use every single measure available to us to fight foreign interference because our democracy is at stake and our individual lives, each and every one of us, doesn't matter who we are and where we come from, we are being targeted, and we need that protection. And the Canadian government needs to step up and to put all of those measures in place.
And a question for René Vermeulen from the Bloc Québécois. My question is protecting freedoms and democracy also within Quebec. And of course, there's been many people, organizations that have helped support the CCP and Beijing's engagement within our country and investments. How do you see a Foreign Agency Registration Act protecting the rights of Quebec, who are also a diaspora community actually within our own nation?
That's an interesting question containing a sub-question. But let me just start by saying again that we're very sensitive to the situation, and we have prepared a bill that will be presented before the end of this session. So just to be clear, a bill that will be strong, that will have measures to make sure that everybody is protected. Now, it has been mentioned that we could be looking at other jurisdiction. We have, but not only, because some of these jurisdictions they have weaknesses. So we went outside the box to create something that will be a bit different, but will protect everybody. Now, Quebec being a minority within a majority, we have to make sure that this is very well understood, because the problematic of foreign interference is mainly seen from China to Canada, and people in Quebec don't exactly pay a lot of attention to that. We'll have education to do and make sure that the bill proposes something special for that minority within a majority.
Thank you. Any other questions from our media friends here?
If no other questions, I want to ask John a question. Okay, the government's been promising since 2021. Public safety did their consultations. On the justice side, they had to do a consultation. Are you hearing anything now from the government that they're actually going to seriously put together a package that includes foreign registry, but also criminalize foreign interference, change the Security of Information Act so that, and CSIS Act, so that our spy service can alert members of Parliament? They don't have to find out about it from the media, from leaks. They can tell them, and you can find out, so that they can tell them this kind of information?
I think there's a lot of work that's going on, and some things are more ready than others to be tabled. I take comfort in the fact that all of the colleagues from Parliament are here to get a bill from today to royal assent through all of the stages of Parliament and all of the stages of the Senate will require an enormous amount of cooperation. So I'm rather expecting and hoping that my colleagues from all of the other parties will speak to their House leaders and say, this is a priority for us. And that will be a clear signal that the government can prepare their legislation. And in Elizabeth's case, she can speak to herself.
Yeah. Well, I have multiple people to speak to. So. But I have to say that was uncharacteristically diplomatic of you, John. Very well done. He didn't attack us on that when he had the chance.
Yes. Okay, any other question? Maybe I just, add one more. Oh, Dean, yeah, please first.
So we're all very aware inside this Parliament, inside Canada, that this is a global issue. The Americans have taken a very aggressive approach to combating China. They've now stated that not only are they a competitor, but they're a strategic adversary. I would dare say, given the work, as some of you know, that I've been involved with publishing, it is about a hybrid war tactics. No, you talked about collectively. What can you do to work together in committees to mark up a bill that you can bring forward by this fall so that it can be voted on? And that, I think, collaboration amongst all of you, you all recognize the need. Let's work together as parliamentarians. Let's show Canada, and I ask the question, who will stand up and move a bill like that forward inside Parliament?
Renee?
Well, thank you for the question. I will ask my colleagues here to welcome favorably that bill that we will present before the end of this session. Now, this is a basis for discussion. Obviously, this is nothing final. We'll try to make it go to committee whenever it's possible. But I think that what we decided was to have something to discuss, to improve if necessary, but at least to have a part and start moving. Because as you mentioned, the United States have started, finding people, doing something about it, and we're still talking. So by presenting this bill, we want to make sure that we have something to talk about, and at least a starting point. And that's, I invite all my colleagues here to welcome this and to look at it with an open mind. Again, this is not a partisan issue. This is a Canadian and a Quebec issue. It's basically for everybody.
So if the government doesn't bring in legislation on a setup foreign agent registry, the bloc is going to put in?
Yes,
okay.
we will do this before the end of this session. So that, and again, it's not to throw stones at anybody. We want to start the discussion. We want to start the ball rolling, and at least we'll have something to talk about, improve, change, whatever, but we'll be starting with something. And again, we've looked at other countries, but we've looked beyond within the field of, intelligence and how we manage this information. So again, basis for discussion that hope will be welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next, Jenny would like to respond to that.
Yeah, I will just add very quickly, what we do know is that the government legislators have already drafted this legislation. And this is my understanding.
Yes.
And what needs to be done is for them to table it so that we can all see this piece of legislation and engage in exactly that process in a bipartisan way to work through that piece of legislation, to provide good input with respect to it, and pass it, so that we can have it become law before the next election. There is no reason, no justification for any delays at all. That bill is drafted, let's table it, let's get it going. Just before we started the press event, people were saying, what would you say in 1 minute? I would say this, just do it. Let's get it done.
Can we ask a redirect a question to the Liberals on this? If that's the case, Jenny's mentioned that the bill has been tabled. Why are the Liberals not bringing it forward as the government in power?
Emperor? Liberal? Okay.
Maybe ask the minister and the prime minister.
Well, actually, we, as the coalition, we have been having meetings with various ministries and also bureaucrats. Based on what we have heard, the draft of the legislation was completed last year. And the consultation on corresponding acts, such as CSIS Act, Information Act, and Criminal Code has also been completed. So we don't understand why the Liberal government is still putting a hold to the tabling and passage of this important registry in Parliament. From the perspective of the civil society, we are tired of empty promises, empty words. We need action now.